Hey everyone, it's Britt. So life kind of got a hold of me and Hannah again, but we did not want to leave you empty-handed, without an episode this week. So we are re-releasing an episode from our former podcast, one of our favorite books, All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. It is a dark, twisted thriller, and it reads more like you're watching some sort of true crime documentary, the way that it plays out on the page. It was just a phenomenal book, phenomenal episode. There will be a few cuts here and there. There won't be much at the end for what's coming next, but stay tuned. Every other week, we will be releasing episodes and we have some fun stuff planned. So we hope you enjoy. Happy listening. Hello, everyone. We are your hosts. I'm Britt.
And I'm Hannah.
And every 2 weeks, we read and review a book, assign a song to that book, draw the parallels between the two, and have some fun along the way.
And this week, we've brought the genre back around to one of our favorites. So we read the mystery/thriller All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby.
Yes. And how this episode is going to work is we are going to go over trigger warnings and a brief synopsis of the book. Then we're going to reveal our song choices, which is our favorite part of the podcast. After our song choices, we're going to move into what we like to call spoiler territory, meaning after that point, we will be discussing anything and everything that happens cover to cover inside of this book. So if you have not read this book and you want to read this book, that would be your time to back out and then come back once you have. All the Sinners Bleed is a very heavy book. So just know that. And it covers a lengthy list of topics. This is one book that we definitely recommend checking your triggers. You know yourself best. But some of the theme warnings that come from Storygraph: murder, racism and racial slurs, child death, child abuse, violence, torture, mass/school shootings, gun violence, gore, hate crimes, pedophilia, blood, injury, religious bigotry, sexual violence, death of a parent, amongst a myriad of other reported trigger warnings. Again, definitely just check this one out. I do believe that it's handled very professionally and in a, not in a gratuitous way. It's needed for the story, but just take note when you're diving into this one.
Yes. So a brief synopsis from Goodreads. Titus Crown is the first Black sheriff in the history of Charon County, Virginia. In recent decades, Charon has had only 2 murders. After years of working as an FBI agent, Titus knows better than anyone that while his hometown might seem like a land of moonshine, cornbread, and honeysuckle, secrets always fester under the surface. Then a year to the day after Titus's election, a school teacher is killed by a former student, and the student is fatally shot by Titus's deputies. Those festering secrets are now out in the open and ready to tear the town apart. As Titus investigates the shootings, he unearths terrible crimes and a serial killer who has been hiding in plain sight, haunting the dirt lanes and woodland clearings of Charon. With the killer's possible connections to a local church and the town's harrowing history weighing on him, Titus projects confidence about closing the case while concealing a painful secret from his own past. At the time, he also has to contend with the far-right group that wants to hold a parade in celebration of the town's Confederate history. Using his past training from the FBI and navigating through deep-rooted racism, Titus works to find answers to crimes without losing himself.
Okay. Now, are we ready to reveal our song choices for All the Sinners Bleed?
So ready.
Okay. So I don't know. This one was hard because there's so many pieces to the puzzle. I didn't necessarily want to do something too on the nose, but I ended up listening to this song quite a few times, and I feel like it applies to so many of the pieces to the puzzle. And I think that as soon as I say it, you're going to understand why. I can't believe this is the first time I've picked a song by this artist on the podcast, but I actually did choose Sign of the Times by Harry Styles.
That was on my short list.
Okay, good.
It was on my short list, so yes,
Yep.
I understand. So I picked something that is very, very near and dear to my heart. I'm a musical theater girly to my core, and I picked History Has Its Eyes on You from Hamilton.
I had a feeling you told me that it's going to make sense when I hear your song choice, that it was going to be musical theater related, but I love that.
Yes, I was listening to the soundtrack and I was like, wait, this works.
Yeah.
This works because we listen to that soundtrack multiple times a week here at my house.
All right. This is your warning. If you do not want spoilers, back out now and come back once you've read this book, because we probably won't be spoiling this too much. I feel like we're going to go in order of the story because this book is kind of laid out, in my opinion, similar to almost like a true crime documentary in the way that things kind of, happen step after step after step. So I don't think anything's going to be crazy spoiled, but
That's what you think.
that's what I think.
I do want to point out a couple foreshadows that happened in like chapter 6. So read the
Never
book.
mind. Never mind. Erase everything I just said. So, spoilers
But
ahead.
it does read like a true crime.
Yes.
You are right. I
Yeah.
agree with you there. But no,
Everything kind of unfolds.
there's one thing I want to point out that happened early.
This is what happens when one of us makes the outline and the other like doesn't. One of us ends up picking up on all of the foreshadows that we might have missed the first time.
Yes.
So,
So pause, read the book, or if you want
read
to
it.
just enjoy a little true crime podcast with us, stick around.
Exactly. Okay. So, this book is it's in the vein of like our tried and true genre of mystery, thriller, that kind of thing. But this book, in my opinion, was a lot heavier and felt more rooted in like reality than some of the other books that we've read. How did you feel about it? Did it feel like something that could have happened to you? Did it feel fictional? Because to me, this felt like I was literally like listening to someone describe something that just happened like a week ago.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think where a lot of like the mystery thriller, there's like a really stretch of reality to
Yes.
certain things, like,
Yes.
our narrator having access to all these fake identities or just
Hmm.
different things that really stretch the truth but seem believable in the story. Where
Yeah.
this one felt like it actually happened
Yep.
and could happen. And there's some very like scenes in this that I was like nervous about reading,
Yeah.
but I think it was told in a very, very detailed and productive way, kind of how he wrote it.
I agree. And I think that a lot of people struggle with reading books in third person, but I think it actually served this book really, really well because we were able to see things from more of like a limited POV. So we weren't directly in the investigation. I mean, we kind of, in some ways, we were, but to not be in someone's head during this and to just see the
Hmm.
events unfold, I think lended itself really, really well to the story.
Yeah. I used to really only like first person, but the
Mhm.
more I'm reading, I'm really liking third person more and more with it. So I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I think I like first person for like romance and stuff like that. I'm okay with third person in especially fantasy and mysteries and stuff like that because I think it gives you an air of suspense that you don't get when you're
Hmm.
reading in someone's head directly.
Definitely. So for this book, it does take place in Virginia in good
Mhm.
old Sharon County.
Yep.
And I thought like the history of the town was interesting too, that the founders just went with the next available option after like the first one was taken alphabetically.
Yeah.
And that mythically, like Charon in Greek mythology is the ferryman who escorts souls to Hades,
Mhm.
which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
And they talk about how it's like really fitting for a town with that has a history of violence and bloodshed and kind of with that middle ground in the history.
Yeah.
And like we said in the synopsis, Titus is our main character, and
Mhm.
he's the first Black sheriff in this county.
Yes.
So really, he has to balance, his distrust from both the Black and white communities in this town being in his position.
Yeah. And the book opens up pretty hard and fast with a school shooting. So very heavy straight out of the gate. And Titus recognizes the kid as one of his closest friend's sons, who is a former student of the school, not currently enrolled. So Latrell McDonald is the shooter, and he killed a beloved teacher. Like, people loved this teacher. And Titus tries to calm him down, but he starts talking about things like the angel of death and how Latrell wanted to stop, but that they would hurt his brother, and just so many very strange things. And you'll see as we kind of go along, there are a lot of like religious iconography and like faith undertones that are kind of woven throughout the story. And they're used in, I mean, religion was weaponized, throughout the book. And so
Hmm.
that coming up very early on was kind of our first glimpse into that. And Titus's deputies do end up shooting and killing Latrell. And it seems like a straightforward case, but it really becomes a catalyst to uncover so many dark secrets that this town holds.
One thing too, I didn't write this down, but since we're talking about the teacher, like one
Yeah.
side story too is how this teacher like advocated for like interracial couples being able to go to
Mhm.
dances and just different things that this teacher was imagine your favorite teacher growing up. Like, this is
Yeah.
who this teacher was to the community. So the fact that he was shot and killed is like a big
Yeah.
deal for them.
And I remember, you'll probably remember from And That's Why We Drink, whenever someone is a pillar of the community, you should be concerned. And that comes tried and true to this one. I feel like this town is a kind of a case of like the good old boys club
Yeah.
and, a few other things. But the interesting thing about Titus, like we said in the synopsis, is that he is a former FBI agent. And so this really gives him a different perspective and he latches onto what Luttrell is saying. And so this reminded me, I am a huge Criminal Minds fan. It took me years to watch it. I was convinced by a friend to finally dive in, and I binge watched all like 13 available seasons. And the way that Titus thinks reminded me of that because he was in profiling and behavior analyst. And so I think that it was really like an interesting tie-in straight out of the gate to hear him be like, well, this behavior could lead to this, and this, could categorize this as this. And I think it also made me trust Titus straight out of
Hmm.
the gate.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think his background's really interesting. And he brings up this situation that he keeps thinking of. We don't know exactly what happened, but that he was involved with this like big deal, this white supremacy leader when he was in Indianapolis, right?
Yes,
Indiana. And so we don't know exactly what happened, but he keeps going back to that. So it definitely kind of shaped his way of thinking.
totally.
And so, of course, this incident at the school is a big catalyst, right? There's only been
Absolutely.
2 murders in the last few years, and the 1-year anniversary of Titus's sheriffness. So he gets confronted by Jamal Addison, who's a Black pastor. And like you
Yep.
said, right, there's a lot of like religion and weaponized religion here. So you can tell that he's probably not really going to be a friend, right?
Yeah.
But Jamal does confront Titus about the incident at school. And he is very adamant that he wants an external investigation because he just doesn't believe that Titus is doing enough as a fellow person of color, that he is like not taking it seriously. And Titus is like, I am, don't worry. Like,
Yeah.
you might not see. And I feel like Titus is just like so even keel and like cool that like people
Yes.
try to get a rise out of him from either side. And he's just like, don't worry. And like, I can see why he got elected because I
A
feel like
hundred
his
percent.
personality is just very calm, cool, and collected on the outside.
Yeah. And he is someone who sees the systemic racism and sees how the system is built against people like Titus. But he also knows that he, in this position, needs to uphold the law and do things well. But especially because he's the first Black sheriff, he's going to be looked at under a microscope. And if he doesn't do things by the book, the fallout would be exponentially worse than someone else. So I feel like he takes so much caution and care with the way that he handles himself, the demeanor that he has in his behaviors to ensure that he is taken seriously, especially by his dissenters and people who did not want to elect him.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Yeah.
So as Titus is doing the investigation, he does take both of their phones. And one detail I did like is when he does go to like the ME's office, medical examiner's office,
Mm-hmm.
and the doctor is like, it's not going to work, like the phone is only, Mr. Spearman's phone is only going to be unlocked by like heat. And Titus is like, no. It like the way he had his settings, right? And he tries it at first and
Yeah.
it doesn't work. And then they're kind of a moment like, told you so. But then he tries the other hand and actually opens.
Yeah.
I did like those, like the way it's written there just kind of gives it a little bit of like relief, it felt like, to like a super serious situation. But what he finds on that phone is not good. So it leads to them actually going to Mr. Spearman, the teacher's house.
Yes. And when they go to the house, we learn the beloved pillar of the community, Mr. Spearman, immediately, like, they just can't believe that this man would have spawned Luttrell's incident. And so white men actually thanked Titus for removing Luttrell from the situation. So what they're about to find on Mr. Spearman is going to turn a lot of heads. And Titus uncovers files from Mr. Spearman's external hard drive that shows him as a kind of a key piece of sinister, horrible acts of abuse. In these videos that he uncovers, there are masked men, and Titus is determined to find the quote unquote last wolf who was involved in the violence. And it's something that immediately after they find out what's going on with Mr. Spearman and everything that happened, people just are unwilling to believe it. And I think that's so real that you have this constructed ideal of someone in your life, especially someone who campaigned for your life to be better and did things
Mm-hmm.
to improve your life, it's really hard to reconcile with the fact that they could also be evil and do terrible things. So they find a wolf mask at Spearman's house. It matches the one in the video and the one that Latrella had at school. And at Spearman's too, there's also a painting of a willow tree that says the secret garden, and that looks familiar to Titus. They're uncovering this evidence, and it is wild for them to like take this all in because it is a small town. Everyone knows Mr. Spearman. And so after finding the evidence, we're just kind of shocked as the reader and, you know, in the narration to see that the crimes extended beyond the high school incident and there were many, many Black children killed. And this is wild. I mean, for years, Hannah and I were listening to true crime podcasts and stuff like that. And I think that that's why this hits so close to home is after hearing the statistics of like children who are Black statistically will be looked for less and will get less media coverage just because of the color of their skin. And I think that's why this one hits so hard because it felt like it was just plucked from reality. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
so clear that there are so many themes that happen in our day-to-day lives that are written in here. Obviously in a fictional story, but it felt like I was reading something true.
Yeah. And I just feel like Titus's loyalty is really like tested many times because he does have to balance his authority with like his personal convictions as well
Yeah.
throughout this whole situation. So he does after a long day, and it was a long emotional day for him. That's a lot.
Mhm.
He goes to a restaurant, and of course, people comment on the death of a teacher to him.
Yeah.
So he does run into Cole Marshall and Royce Lazar. So this is where I am going to spoil some things
Let's
because,
do it.
well, I mean, I don't have to necessarily spoil it, but I am going to read something
Read
from
it.
a certain someone. So Royce and Cole are just like not good people, right?
Mhm.
And they like actually thank Titus. Like you said earlier, like they thank
Mhm.
people thank Titus, the white people.
Yeah.
So rude. And Titus is like, no need to thank me. Like what? Excuse me. Royce actually says, glad you had the nerve to put that boy down. Mr. Spearman was a good fella. And like, and Titus doesn't like
Oh.
recognize like who this guy is. And he's
Mhm.
like, so he's with the group, like Cole Marshall group. And Titus says that the man's name danced on the edge of his memory. And it came to him after a second, Royce Lazar. He was wearing an old school trucker hat over a thick head of brown hair. I like Titus. I really like Titus. I think he
Me
was a
too.
great main character. He,
Me too.
he like tells Royce like he wasn't a dog. We didn't put him down. Like just the fact that like Royce would say that just like makes me
Mhm.
sick. But moving on. And Royce like starts to say something and just like I was just saying and just kind of like lets it like die on his lips. I think when it shows his like struggle of like he is the sheriff.
Yes.
So, like, he does have to be, you know, somewhat not really nice, but just like politically correct to these guys, right? Where
Yes.
like he really just wants to give him a piece of his mind and he's like, I can't just like stand here as an extra, but I also can't give in too. I feel like Titus's inner self kind of really working with it.
Yeah.
And so he just ends it like, y'all have a good evening. But when we get to the end, I'll kind of
Mhm.
talk about that again. I won't spoil it all, but
I mean, go for it.
when we find out about Royce being the last wolf,
Yeah.
I like had to go back and be like, did we meet him? Because I was like shocked to find out who he was.
Me
And
too.
so I was interested because I remembered that scene happening, but I didn't remember who said
Like
it.
who was in it? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because it took Titus a minute to recognize him. So that's probably why we didn't really think that he was important because Titus didn't think he was important.
Yes. And I think that that lended to the mystery of the story as well was how many characters are in it and how many people we meet, how many interviews we have, how many moving pieces there are in the puzzle. I think that that definitely helped keep the mystery a surprise because
Mm-hmm.
he was not on my radar at all. I like firmly believed that it was going to end up being like a pastor. It was going to be like someone along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
I also thought that it could be someone really, really close to Titus, like in his life, like his brother.
Yes,
Um,
I did too.
and so I think that he did such a good job of like, he was in there. If you looked and you made that connection, you would have seen it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just like listened to the story in an immersive way, you miss it so
Yeah.
easily.
if you let a book be a book, you just
If you let a book
live
be a
well.
book.
Yep. And then Titus does remember, too, later, why that tree looked familiar.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to a local landowner's place and dig near a willow tree, and they
Yep.
find 7 children's bodies buried beneath the willow.
Mm-hmm. When they discovered that, they were about to call off the search, like all of the volunteer search group, because they've been out there for hours. And Titus is like, just keep looking. Give me 45 more minutes. Just let me keep going. And they were like, we don't have to be here. And as soon as that happens, a body is discovered. And I think that was a testament to Titus's training, especially in the FBI, of using his gut and like really discerning what's real and what's not, fact from fiction. You get a ton of tips in cases like this. And I feel like he, in a realistic way, was able to discern those things because he missed a lot too. Like he was always a step behind, 2 steps behind, things like that.
Mhm.
After they discover the bodies, Titus is called to deal with a conflict between Jamal's congregation and Ricky Sowers. So someone vandalized a statue, and there's a whole thing about that. But like with the vandalization and stuff like that, it's a very racially charged environment between like racial groups, and not necessarily just racial groups, but people who want to keep like the Confederate pride alive of their town,
Mhm.
and Black people just trying to exist, but also religious extremists and religious zealots. There's a lot happening in this little town.
So, yeah, the town has a lot going on, like this town. So
Yes.
there's like a lot of people at this vandalization drama. And it does mention like, so people are going away and Titus is like, I'm not taking sides. This is what happened. Like, take it up with the Daughters of the Confederate. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not, this isn't public property. Like, it's not my jurisdiction, basically, is what Titus is saying.
Yes.
So there's a sentence in here that he noticed Royce with the Texaco trucker hat walking with Ricky back across the courthouse garden. He knew Royce drove one of Sharon's school buses. He was also
Mm.
apparently a Confederate apologist. So, like, it's not a lot, but they're, like, going back.
There are a few pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm interested if you did read this book, our listeners, and you figured it out. I'd love to hear, like, what gave it away for you because he wasn't even on my radar.
No.
Like,
And
because, like, Ricky Sowers, Denver, like, those were, like, louder
mm-hmm.
people, and Royce, I feel like, was there, but just never really, like, super vocal, except his stupid-ass comment in the restaurant.
Agreed. And yeah, it's just one of those like, usually I unfortunately like I don't have the ability sometimes to like just read. This one I just read. Like I just did watch the story unfold as it did, and it just never came across like
So,
at all. Very interesting though, but Titus does end up meeting with the medical examiner about all of the children's bodies that were found, and they found that there are religious statements carved into their bodies, and they can only tell on the ones that have not fully decomposed. There's also an unidentified metal T shaped object that is believed to have been used to torture the children, which is horrifying, but it does come back up later. Something that's interesting is that a lot of people in the sheriff's office in Titus's life told him that he should just pass this case along to the state police because they don't have the resources to handle something like this. And if Titus had not been the one to meet with the medical examiner to see these things, to get these clues, this case would have never been solved.
yep.
He just knew that he had to take this on, and he would lean on the resources when he needed them. But he knew in his heart of hearts, in his gut, that if he didn't do something, no one was going to, because these are a bunch of Black kids that went missing and no one
Mhm.
cares enough to do anything about it.
Yep. And so Titus does hold a press conference to inform the community of latest developments and what's going on and, all his sheriffy duties.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of true crime podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
somebody from Titus's past comes into view, and Kelly, who is his ex, they used to date back when he was in the FBI in Indiana. She finds out about what's going on and calls him up and is like, "Hey, I'm going to be in town." And he's like, "Not now, Kelly, not now." And she's like, "Well, you probably want to put your statement in before I just make up,
Yep.
my infer from what I'm going to be being told by your citizens."
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we meet Mr. Marquise. I was on the same boat as you. I was like, what if it's his brother? Because they're
Yeah.
not super close anymore, really. Like,
Mhm.
their mom died. And
He was on a
Marquise
dark
just,
path and
yeah. And he accuses Titus of attempting to fix everything after,
Mhm.
like, their mother died. Like, you came back and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And he also, like, runs with some interesting people, too. So he knows that, well, he kind of hints at it that there's this, like, I don't know, I picture him as like a mafia guy, technically,
Yeah.
but not really. Like Jasper Sanderson,
Mm.
he is an owner of a bar and he is in the drug trade. He does a lot of drug dealing. Titus's brother hints that Jasper is paying somebody on Titus's department. So Titus
Mhm.
has a mole.
That's I mean, that's huge to have
Hmm.
someone to betray you inside of your own department.
Yeah.
And then we have an anonymous caller. So, like I said earlier, he's getting a bunch of tips and he's trying to do his best to discern what's useful and what's not. Another thing that I learned that I didn't know about, which I think is insane that happens, is that people will call in fake tips to like feel like they're a part of investigations or to intentionally throw them off. And I'm just like, in what world is that something that people would want to do? Like, in what
Right.
world? But in this one in particular, an anonymous caller tells Titus that he once helped a friend construct an outbuilding where he and this friend took girls to, but there are portraits of angels covering the wall in this building. Again, the religious iconography is going to come back time and time again. And the description matches specifically the background of the photographs in Spearman's phone. So Titus then believes he recognizes the caller's voice, but they hang up before offering any further information. And the number was attached to a burner. So there's no way to trace the call and to really find out what was going on. So those religious carvings in the kids, the pictures of the angels, end up leading Titus to look into the churches to see if he can find any correlation. So he goes to interrogate Elias Hillington, who denies any involvement in the violence. And one of the phrases that was on one of the victims is on a sign at this church. And Titus makes a note of it, but with the vehement denial from Elias and not really having much else to go on, he just kind of stows that away in the back of his mind and uses it to further his investigation, but there's nothing he can do in the moment with that.
Yeah. Because I think he like asked Elias, like, oh, who put that on the sign? And Elias is like, I did.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
just like, okay. Like, I feel like he's just like
Interesting.
cataloging it. Like, okay,
Yes.
what's
100%.
up? And
Yep.
then we find out that Mr. Cole has been
Mm-hmm.
one of the guys that we met at the diner, has been
Yep.
brutally maimed. Like his lungs have been removed and hung around him so he resembles an angel. He's
Mm.
missing his face. And Titus has this realization that the voice on the phone, that anonymous tip, was Cole.
Which is interesting because it was anonymous. And if that happened to Cole right after, obviously, one, that means he was involved in some way
Mm-hmm.
or knows the person who is responsible. And
Yep.
two, the person who's responsible has access to either the fact that Cole called or is within the sheriff's office because Titus has been very good about being tight lipped, even with people on his team, about how much information he releases and when. Because it's a small town, rumors spread like wildfire. Like immediately after Cole's death, someone walks in and is like, I heard that this happened to him and they did this to him. And Titus is like, whoa, we haven't even confirmed who this is. One.
Mm-hmm.
Two, if we keep spreading rumors like this, that's only going to hurt our investigation. So, like, let's put a lid on it. So it was just, again, another like, I wonder how that happened.
Yeah. Cole actually worked with Latrell. They both
Mhm.
worked down at the fish house. So the police decide to go down there since there is this connection and interview some employees there. And they find that Latrell was good friends with somebody named Darnell Posey. They just another little catalog thing that they like put in there that comes up in a little bit. And actually, I'm going to talk about this and then we can go back to
Yeah,
the other thing.
absolutely.
So Darnell comes up because later Darnell actually drops off a box at the police station. And
Hmm.
in this box
Hmm.
is Cole's missing face.
Yep.
And Darnell's like, I don't know what was in it. I was paid. They told me that I was going to get, I think it was like $500 or something, right? To bring in this box to the police station.
Yeah, which is absolutely insane, clinically insane behavior. And two, they were the way that Cole was maimed so badly. At first, they thought 2 people did it because of just how violent and brutal it was. But Titus said it's the work of one. One person did it, and it's someone that Cole trusted. It's someone that was within his circle. So for this to happen, it's someone who was trusted by Cole in a circle, is super calculated, organized, and very intelligent. So when Darnell drops it off and, Titus investigates it, he's like, oh, like Darnell is not smart enough to pull this off. Like he could not have done this.
Yeah. Yeah. Poor Darnell. Like,
I
this
know.
box shows up, you take it, you be a good citizen, like, oh, here. And it's,
And
yeah.
it's a
Ugh.
face.
Yep. So one character we haven't really talked about is Titus's current girlfriend, which is Darlene.
Yeah.
She was just kind of there for me. I felt like
Same.
there wasn't really, I mean, he talks about how he misses, Kelly in some ways too. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Darlene wasn't a figurehead for me, but they do have a
Mm.
little argument. And I think it just kind of gave Titus another sounding board too. But they had an argument debating if the murders accurately represent Sharon County.
Yeah.
And Titus believes that they do fundamentally reflect the racist spirit of the county,
Mm-hmm.
where Darlene doesn't. And Titus is like, yeah, it's deep rooted here. Like,
Yeah.
so I thought that was an interesting argument that they had there, just to show kind of Titus's view on it in a different
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Then Titus, he asks one of his trusted detectives to investigate the bank accounts of his deputies, and he's hoping to do this to locate the mole. So he asks him to look for suspicious activity, large deposits leading up to this, anything that might, send off some alarms, some alarm bells going off, to just try and figure out what's going on.
Yep. Titus doesn't decide to go back to Elias's church,
Mm-hmm.
but when he does, he actually meets Griselda, who's a neighbor of the church there of Elias. And she talks about how the Hillington family once had a mysterious mixed-race boy. She said that,
Mm-hmm.
like, she knows it wasn't theirs because neither the mom or any of the daughters really gained any weight, and then this boy just showed up.
Mm-hmm.
She says that the boy was mistreated and suspects that one of the brothers actually sexually abused him as well. And that brother eventually died because he was locked in an outhouse with venomous snakes. The mysterious boy is likely the one who committed the murder, and then he just disappeared. Which,
Yeah. And like
the whole
they
story
have
was wild.
it was insane, and they have snakes still in the church, and like
Mm-hmm.
the way that they talk about it. Now, Titus is not a religious man. He said he lost his faith a long time ago, but he is well versed in the Bible, in certain phrases, certain excerpts, and he does counter a lot of these religious moments with quoting things back to them and saying, well, actually, this is exactly what it says, and now you've changed it and shaped it to mean something else. And so we see how these little religious groups and churches start to shift things to fit their narrative, their story, and their perspective. But that story was wild. And also, Griselda is an icon. She's a
Yes.
legend in this town. She stayed in that house strictly because it bothered the church that she was there and they didn't like her. We love a petty, spiteful queen.
Mm-hmm. And so after hearing this story, Titus believes that this mysterious boy is the last wolf that they are
Mm-hmm.
searching for.
Yep.
And we kind of already talked about it, but at this point, who did you think that the boy was?
I had so many theories running through my head. Now, after finding out that it was likely the boy that was raised through the church, I kind of wrote off Marquise, but I did still think that he might have some involvement with what was going on. But honestly, I thought it was the pastor or someone within the church or someone that we hadn't like really met yet. I really didn't like think too far into it, like, because I just truly, this one I did not know. Like,
Yeah.
I just could not figure this one out.
Yeah, I think after hearing that story, it made me pause and be like, it's probably somebody we don't know.
Yeah,
Or I thought it could be one of his deputies. I thought it might be somebody on his payroll.
agreed. Yes, yes, yes. But yeah, this one, I'm surprised. Like, I very rarely get through a book without at least like funneling through who it might be. No, not a damn clue. Not one.
Right.
Now, one of the next people that the police investigates is Diane Carter, who texted Cole the night of his murder. And so she uses some of the same odd language that the last wolf uses. And Titus suspects that she was used to lure Cole out of his house because he trusted her. And she doesn't give any more information. She's pretty tight-lipped about everything, but it's all circling back. Like all of these small things are building up on top of the other, one on top of the other, and a regular old school shooting, God bless America, is starting to uncover more deep and dark secrets at every turn. And it just seems like all of these little threads are starting to tie together here.
Yep. And so Trey gets the results back from investigating the bank accounts of the deputies. And we find out that Tom is the mole for Jasper.
Mm-hmm.
And so Titus is like, peace, bye, GTFO. And Tom was already suspended because Tom was on desk duty, because he was one of the ones that actually fired the killing shot of Latrell.
Yep. This is rough. He's really he's fighting for his life. He's trying to like, back Titus down and say like, oh no, like I promise, and all of these excuses. Titus is not buying it. And right after this situation, he gets a call from the last wolf who uses a voice modulator, and he makes a series of super cryptic religious statements. Again, all of these similar phrases, things are really weird, very cult like. Then, after attending a funeral for one of Titus's father's friends, they visit his mother, Helen's grave. And after a rough night, he had the call from the last wolf on this call had told him that his flock is not safe, that the people in his life are not safe. So when they get home after the funeral, after visiting the grave, there is a lamb nailed to his front door that was sacrificed, which is horrifying.
Yes.
Um,
And
oh,
Albert,
oh,
his dad, is like, I'm not leaving this house. Titus is
yeah,
like, Dad, let's stay somewhere else. Like, this is not safe. And
yes.
Albert's like, nope, I'm staying. Like, it's like, oh,
Yeah, he's
all
like, you're
right,
not going to
Albert.
run me out of my house. Like,
Yeah. But Titus does suggest like him and Darlene have some space for her safety.
mhm,
And so they do kind of separate there too.
yep.
And then another body turns up. A local farmer finds a body in his field,
Mhm,
and it happens to be Elias,
yep.
the pastor from the church with the snakes.
Yes. Yes. Which is, there's so much that happens. So much that happens. I never really felt like overwhelmed by what was happening, but I definitely could not physically keep track of everything that was going down.
Yeah.
Like, I would have needed to take notes alongside this for me to like keep all of the pieces together. After this, Titus is approached by Scott, who tells him, you should turn the case over to the state. There's a lot to it. He's starting to consider. But Titus also tells Scott again and again and again that while he is their elected sheriff, Scott is not his boss. And he doesn't answer to Scott. Scott will get the information in which it is received by the public, just like everyone else in Sharon County. And this causes a lot of tension. And Scott definitely alludes to just some bullshit about, getting Titus out of office and running, a re-election, an emergency one, running a recall, stuff like that. But just as Titus is starting to consider really handing things over to the state police, Dr. Kim, the ME, emails Titus and says that there is DNA evidence that points to Scott's maternal half brother as the murderer. And Scott is unaware of a half brother, and he warns Titus to stay far away from his mother.
And so Titus, of course, goes to visit Scott's mother,
Of course.
who tells him that she actually had a series of affairs with black men because her husband was gay, which was an interesting little story. And she actually seems relieved to tell this story. Like, it's something that's like been weighing on her, that it just like is ready to be told. And so after her husband died, she did become pregnant, and her in-laws forced her to give up the child to the Hillingtons.
Mhm.
And the child was named Gabriel.
Yes.
We have a name now for this last wolf, Gabriel. And I was like, we haven't met any Gabriels.
Yeah. It was definitely an alias or, using a different name
Mm-hmm.
here. And then, no, I did already say it, but the last wolf did warn him that his flock is not safe. And after that, Marquise does actually join his dad and Titus for a nice dinner. And this does not happen. Like, this is a very rare occurrence. Like, Albert is like bebopping around the house. He's like so excited for Marquise to come over. And they end up having a really, big conversation where Titus opens up to Marquise about what happened in the FBI and why he moved back to Virginia. So, during a raid on the DeCrane's compound, the DeCrane family, including his young sons, blew themselves up with suicide vests, and Titus survived but then shot DeCrane, despite DeCrane's pleas to be arrested. So the FBI then facilitated Titus's quiet retirement from the agency, swept it under the rug. In his specific area in the FBI, he dealt with terrorism, domestic mostly. And so there were a lot of moving pieces, but it weighs heavily on him after everything that happened. But we did finally learn the story about why he left the FBI. And for him to trust Marquise with this, I feel like is a testament to the growth of their relationship over these last, weeks of the investigation.
Mm-hmm. Kelly invites Titus to her hotel room to listen to the interview.
Mm-hmm.
Titus arrives to find the last wolf attacking Kelly and her producer.
And the last wolf murders her producer, Howard, and manages to escape.
Like, seriously?
He did say the flock was not safe.
Yep.
But I did think it was interesting, and he actually talks about this with Darlene, that they attacked him with Kelly and not Darlene.
Yep.
So, and he chalks it up to the fact that she's in town, she's doing this podcast, she's shedding light on things. But I think it actually has more to do with the people that are close to Titus.
Yep. And this is where Darlene is like, that's like kind of the straw that broke the camel's back or whatever, right? And Darlene tells Titus that she plans to leave town and they end their relationship. And Darlene has this moment where like she talks about how people think that she might be like brave, right? For like leaving, but really she just needed to run. She needed to get out of there. She like felt very hurt by this choice, by Titus.
Yep.
That she wanted to leave.
And then we move into this fall fest that's happening, and it occurs with much chaos, like everything else in this town right now. And there are neo-Confederates violently clashing with progressive counter demonstrators. It's basically like one group versus another group in this massive demonstration against one another, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
And Denver Carlisle takes his truck and rams it directly into peaceful protesters. And Titus ends up shooting and killing Denver, which Titus never wants that to be the solution, but if that's the only way, that's the only way.
Yeah. And Denver is also like known to be like a drunk, like he has a CDL and all this stuff, and just not a great guy, right?
Correct.
So in the midst of all this chaos too, we find out that Latrell's younger brother is missing.
Because why wouldn't he be?
Just add
why
to it, right?
Missing?
And so one thing we didn't talk about too is like Titus is like best friends with Latrell's dad.
Mm-hmm.
And it was heartbreaking when Titus had to tell him that his son died. It was so sad. But after all this, Titus is like, okay, maybe it's time. Like, let's hand this over to the state police. Like, I'm going to hand it over. He emails the ME, Dr. Kim, and she like has like a little response back to him about how he shouldn't give up basically and all this stuff. And without him, kind of like what you said, right? This investigation would have gone nowhere.
Yeah.
We still have these kids. We have not figured it out.
Who's going to care about the people of color?
Yep.
Like, you're the only one that cares about these missing children, and you can't give up on them.
Yes. And so then he realizes, he starts to think about what they found, right? And it was an unidentified T-shaped object. Mm-hmm. And it finally clicks as to what it was. And it's a truck lock belonging to one of the local factories. And he realizes it after this whole incident with Denver ramming his truck into this crowd, right? Like, oh my gosh, that's a truck lock. So he goes to the factory and he's like, yo, we have to look up these records. Like, let's look up his truck, like all this stuff. And at first, like the dates don't match up, but then he notices a different set of initials on the truck log. Mm-hmm. And those initials belong to Royce Lazar.
Yes. And something that he noticed is that Royce Lazar's last name is an anagram for Azrael, which is, I can't remember off the top of my head because I'm not super familiar with it, but I know like an angel of death, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah.
Titus goes to search Royce's home, and Tom surprise, surprise, the mole arrives to help Titus. Interesting that he just so happens to show up at this exact time when he's already been let go from the job. Interesting. But they find Diane barely alive, tied to a bed. It's pretty gruesome. This book does go into like some gory descriptions. And like we said, be wary, but she does appear to have been tortured, and then her wounds have been cauterized to try and keep her alive. But now her wounds are ending up infected, and Royce was using like air freshener to try and cover the smell, which is like just disgusting. But Titus tells Tom to call 911, and then Royce arrives.
Of course. So, like, talking through this book again, it does feel like
it.
Like a book.
Yes.
More so. But
I think experiencing it, like, especially because we both did the audiobook, it just it felt like we were watching
oh yeah,
like a
definitely.
real story unfold. Yeah.
So Royce ends up killing Tom and seriously injures Titus, like seriously injures him. And they end up in Royce's underground bunker where he is holding Latrell's brother captive and hostage, basically.
Yeah. And then Royce is forced to confront his own demons from Titus. There is a deep-rooted prejudice that's built into Royce by way he was raised in the community influence. So the people of this church that he was raised in taught him self-hatred, basically. And there was internalized racism within himself because by getting rid of these children, in a way, he was cleansing himself of his blackness, is how it was described. And I'm sure there's a lot of psychology that goes into that. This book did feel very well researched to me, but I am no expert here. But it was that was a hard part of the book for me to listen to, because it's like, damn, like that is some heavy shit to have to confront.
Yeah. No, it was a very intense scene.
It was.
For that. Titus is able to kill Royce, and I thought it was a fun little tidbit. I don't know if fun's the right word, but he confiscated this belt knife from his brother, like earlier when he picked him up after like a night of drinking at the bar or whatever. And that is what he actually used to kill Royce. So I thought that was an interesting tie back there. And side note, I thought Titus was going to die too. I thought he was going to kill Royce, and I thought Titus was going to die.
Yeah. But Titus had this moment where he was fading in and out, and he heard his mom's voice speaking to him. And that's really what ultimately pulled him out of this, kind of death spiral, and allowed him to kill Royce and to end everything once and for all. And at the end, the brothers shared like a really, I think, sweet moment about it, where Marquise is like, you said it was your brain, but what if we just said that it was mom there to help you? Because I would do anything to hear her voice again. So the fact that you got to experience that, whether it was from your subconscious or whether it was from her, I say we choose to believe that it was from her, like there to help you.
Yeah. No, I thought that was a special moment for them for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, Titus is sustained some major injuries, and ultimately he'll be okay, but the police force, not for him. That's done. That dream is over. So he does decide to leave Sharon County and go work as a professor in Baton Rouge.
Yep.
But on his way out of town,
he stops and he pulls down a long-standing statue of a Confederate soldier.
Yeah, just ropes it around, and I thought the ending was good. I thought that was like a cool way to end it.
Yeah, very satisfying ending. Yeah, but that was All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. What a journey this book was. And obviously there are some things that we can't fully relate to due to like the systemic racism and prejudice, but we've seen what happens when you oppress marginalized groups, and I think that this was a really nice book to change up the perspectives that we're reading from all the time. Now we're going to move into our song choices. So as a reminder, I chose Sign of the Times by Harry Styles. I've been wanting to use a Harry song for a really long time because the basis of our podcast, like the title of our podcast, if you didn't know, it's very basic, but it's a riff on Music for a Sushi Restaurant by Harry Styles. So Music for a Book podcast. So if you didn't know, now you do. And I have not picked a Harry song since we started the podcast.
I know you haven't.
I haven't. I feel like it's just a very niche, like a lot of his songs are more niche, and I feel like they're harder to fit into boxes. But Sign of the Times starts with, Just stop your crying. It's a sign of the times. Welcome to the final show. Hope you're wearing your best clothes. And I think that that's like Titus's perspective through everything. Like, this is a sign of the times. Like, you may think that we're out of this, you may think that we're progressing, but the times are here. It is rooted in this county. It is rooted in the behaviors that we have. And welcome to the circus, basically. And it says, you can't bribe your door on the way to the sky. You look pretty good down here, but you ain't really good. And I think that that relates so much to the people that are using religious bigotry to hide their evil, their wrongdoings, or Mr. Spearman, who he was so beloved, but he was actually abusing these children. And then it goes into, we never learned, we've been here before. Why are we always stuck in running from the bullets? And it repeats again, but instead it says, why are we always stuck in running from your bullets instead of the bullets? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that builds into the systemic racism and the institutionalized racism that's within the systems as a whole in America, because obviously this is a bigger piece of the puzzle and around the world, but very specifically this county and the times that they're going through, where like, we've been here before, just in different iterations of this time and time again. We see this time and time again. And, you know, people look at each other and say, how could this happen here? This would never happen here. And Titus is just like, we never learn.
Yep.
We've been here before. And it goes into the chorus, just stop your crying. It's a sign of the times. We got to get away from here. Just stop your crying. It'll be all right. They told me that the end is near. We got to get away from here. And I think this was a testament to Titus's very calm, cool, and collected attitude throughout the book that we talked about. Like when he's talking to Darlene, he's talking to people and people are starting to panic. And he's like, just stop your crying. Don't panic. This is a sign of what's happening, but we're gonna fix this problem. It's going to be okay. Oh, remember, everything will be all right. We can meet again somewhere far away from here. And yeah, I just think this is a general vibe song, but also these lyrics about how like we will transcend this place. The good will be separated from the bad. Hopefully we'll learn from it, but it's so clear that we're never learning.
Okay.
And it is a repetitive song, but at the end it does say, we don't talk enough. We should open up before it's all too much. Will we ever learn? We've been here before. It's just what we know. And I think that relates to the conversation that Titus had with Darlene when she was like, I don't think this county is racist. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that these people are bad. And Titus is like, unfortunately, we've been here before and we'll be here again.
Yep.
I've seen it in all of his time with the FBI and his time just in the year as a sheriff and growing up as a black man. Like, he saw all of these things. And I think that this song is really just about accepting the fact that this is the way of the world and he was doing his best to try and fix it from the inside out. Unfortunately, you can't necessarily fix a system that's broken or rigged against you. And he was doing the absolute best that he could within the structure that he had. But I thought of this song around like the 80% mark of the book and it just stuck for me. It made sense. I love this song. It is very emotional, very like a dramatic build to it. And yeah, that's why I picked Sign of the Times. I feel like it fit really well for the book itself.
Yeah, no, 100%. It was on my short list, so
Yeah.
I'm glad you picked it.
Yeah.
It's a great song. It makes me cry 90% of the time I listen to it. So,
100%. Hearing it live was like life changing.
yes,
Yeah.
it really was.
Mhm.
I miss Harry.
I
Anyway,
do too.
so for my song, I went through a lot of different songs, but
Yeah,
this song felt very much as like now Titus is a professor and he's kind of reflecting on his life and like his conversation with Marquise too.
totally.
Because if you're not familiar with Hamilton, this song, it's called History Has Its Eyes on You. Washington is really the one that's singing it.
Mhm.
And he starts off by saying, like, I was younger than you are now when I was given my first command. I led my men straight into a massacre. I witnessed their deaths firsthand. I made every mistake and I felt the shame rise in me. And even now I lie awake.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's how Titus feels, right? Like
Yeah,
if you think about like when he was in Indiana and like that
Mhm.
whole situation with like the family doing the suicide bombings and him killing that like a
yeah,
massacre, right? Like I witnessed their deaths and or even growing up in Sharon County, right? Like he saw that racism since he was younger and he knows firsthand
Mm-hmm.
And, when he becomes sheriff, he feels very personal, like connection to
Yeah.
it. And they talk about like his pride a lot and everything. And I think when it's like felt the shame rise in me, kind of like his pride, he had to balance that piece of him with like his blackness and his authority and kind of where does that meet in the middle.
Yeah.
And I think that kept him awake with those certain things here for it.
Totally.
And the chorus is like, history has its eyes on me. History has its eyes on me.
Mhm.
And right, on all of us, right? Like, what are we
Yeah.
doing to that? And I think with Titus, really, history has its eyes on him. And like in Sharon County, like he was the first Black sheriff. Like, what is he going to do with that?
Mm-hmm.
With it? And he says, really, in the song, like, let me tell you what I wish I'd known. You have no control over who lives, who dies, or who tells your story.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's Titus at the end. Like, he's like, you know what? I really did what I could. But at the end of the day, right now, I have really no control who tells the story of this, right? Unless I go do something. So I think, with him going to Baton Rouge and becoming a professor is just a way for him to help, spread his message to different things in a different way too.
Totally.
The song ends with history has its eyes on you. So
Mhm.
just like to remember that piece, but it just, like I said, I love Hamilton, love the musical.
Mhm.
And just that song just very much felt like this book to me with that.
Yeah.
That was why I
No,
chose
I
that.
love that pick. I'm glad that we had your first musical theater pick for the pod.
I know,
I'm
I'm surprised it
surprised.
took this
I'm
long.
surprised you haven't done that yet. I love it though. I love it so much.
Yes. Thank you all for listening. Make sure to follow us on social media platforms, Instagram, one of our favorites, TikTok. And remember, keep reading with kindness.
Bye everyone.
Bye.